Hi there, I'm Rex King, and welcome to From the Archive, or I should really be saying welcome back to From the Archive, as this is a series I actually had going a while back, but I abruptly stopped about 6 months ago, due to some personal problems. For those of you who are new to the channel, From the Archive is where I look at older movies to give you guys, my viewers, a better understanding of what I like, what I don't like, and to be honest, just an excuse to talk about movies because I love talking about movies. So, I'm going to be talking about Night of the Iguana. Now, some of you might be asking why I'm not doing Song of Bernadette, as that was the last from the archive that I was promising to do, but the reason I decided not to do that is because one of the reasons I stopped from the archive is I really couldn't figure out how to get that video done in a way that I felt was satisfactory. So I decided to just go back to old reliable John Huston and review one of his films. Now, John Huston during the 50s was in a bit of a bind. He was struggling to really find a hit. Now, that's not to say any of his films were bad or awful. They were just not really box office successes. Then, The Night of the Iguana happened, and oh boy, did he hit it out of the park with this one financially. The movie made $12 million on a budget of about $3 million. The film is based off a popular Tennessee Williams play. John Huston actually also wrote the screenplay with the help of Anthony Vealer, and it was also a success with critics, earning several nominations for awards, and even picked up an Oscar for Best Costume Design. Now, what is The Night of the Iguana? Well, so The Night of the Iguana follows Dr. Reverend T. Lawrence Shannon, played by Richard Burton. He's pretty much been ostracized from his priesthood because of inappropriate behavior and finds himself in the Mexican village of Puerto Vallarta. I apologize if I mispronounced that name, which I probably did. And pretty much he's now just doing tours of this place. And he still is having issues, mainly his addiction to alcohol, which is clearly a problem, and his inability to really ignore sexual advances of women, specifically a young woman on his tour, played by Sue Lyon, who really seems to have a thing for him. However, he tries his hardest to push back these advances, until one night, when in a moment of weakness, he does give in to them. However, they're quickly broken up by Sue Lyon's character's guardian, I guess that's what you would call her, played by Grayson Hall, who basically is now going to go out of her way to destroy Shannon. And in order to really save himself, in a last-ditch effort, he basically kidnaps the entire tour bus and goes to a hotel owned by his friend Fred, who he believes can get him out of the situation. Only one problem: Fred is dead. And the hotel has been left in the care of his girlfriend-lover, Maxine, played by Ava Gardner. So Shannon has no choice but to rely on her for help in the hopes that he can find a way out of the situation. Making things even more complicated is the arrival of a artist, played by Deborah Kerr, and her grandfather poet, played by Ciro Del Levante. I apologize if I mispronounced that name as well. And pretty much this complicates matters as it adds a kind of sort of love triangle, as Maxine, who clearly has a thing for Shannon, believes that Deborah Kerr's character might be trying to make her moves on him. And so what Night of the Iguana really is a character study of a man at the end of his rope. He's basically has no hope of getting out of this situation, and he knows that he's basically done. He's going to lose his job. He's has nowhere else to go, and really, honestly, believes that if he does lose his job, he's probably just going to commit suicide. This is compounded by the fact that Sue Lyon's character continues to make advances on him, even though he desperately wants her to stop so he can prove that he is still a priest. And she does eventually stop and ends up falling for the other guy who's running the tour with Shannon. And pretty much the story is about even when in your darkest moments, there are still moments of humanity and relying on others and kind of trying to find your light in the darkness and what that might be for some people. Now, we see this in Shannon specifically as we learn that even though he really is a flawed human being, he's not a bad guy all in all. This is first demonstrated when he is desperately trying to refuse the advances of Sue Lyon's character. And later on, when Grayson Hall's character is basically victorious and is going to and saying that she's going to ruin him, in a moment where he could show a monstrous side to himself, he shows a bit of humanity by telling Maxine to leave her alone and revealing that he kind of realizes that Grayson Hall's character is acting this way because, well, she kind of has feelings for Sue Lyon's character. And though her character is supposed to be a symbol of moral virtues, this is something that if she ever learns about herself, will completely destroy her. Remember, this is the 1960s. This type of revelation would be pretty nasty for someone who is a religious fanatic, as Grayson Hall's character is kind of shown to be. And this is also shown by Deborah Carr's character, who is not really advancing on Shannon the way that Maxine is thinking that she is. She's really just here and is trying to help this guy who she honestly is taking pity on. Furthermore, she is caring for her grandfather, who's really just trying to finish his last poem before he passes, and that does happen in the film. This all culminates in one night where they're basically have Shannon tied up to prevent himself from hurting himself, and these women kind of talk some sense into him, and he realizes kind of that he's not alone in this situation. This is compounded by the fact that Maxine wants to distance herself from him because she doesn't believe he'll ever reciprocate her feelings, because when Fred was alive, he never did, and even though Fred didn't care, but she truly believes that he will never see her in that way. And luckily, the film just does end with those two at least becoming business partners and potentially having a romantic partnership later down the line. This film is really nice and really beautiful. I did just give away a lot of the plot, and I apologize if you wanted to go into this film blind. Mind you, it's from the 1960s. If you haven't seen it at this point, I don't know what to tell you. This film is really, really good. It explores some of the darker themes of certain characters, while also showing us a way forward. That even in our darkest days, there is a bit of light, and we can always help each other out through our darkest days. Night of the Iguana is a relatively enjoyable film. John Huston's direction and visuals are always spectacular. The lighting is spectacular. The costumes, yeah, I can see why they won Best Costume. And the music done by Benjamin Frankel adds a whole new element to this film. I really enjoy Night of the Iguana, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're a Huston fan. Anyway, that's my opinions on Night of the Iguana. What do you think about it if you've seen it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.